Hello, dear learners. First of all, I warmly welcome you to this MOOC on population and society. In the previous videos of this week, we have learnt about the Malthusian and post-Malthusian theories of population. The Malthusian theory, presented by Thomas Robert Malthus, postulates that population grows in a geometrical progression, but food supply grows in arithmetic progression. According to him, population, as it progresses in geometric progression, would double every 25 years. However, as the increase in food supply is slower than population, therefore, the food supply will be limited in a few years, and hence, population needs to be checked, either by positive means or by negative means. Following the Malthusian theory, in the subsequent video, you got an overview of the arguments forwarded by post-Malthusian theorists who opined that shortage of food supply is not only because of population growth but other factors such as unequal distribution of wealth. These are also responsible. Continuing with the discussion of theories of population growth, we shall be discussing the theory of demographic transition in this video today, which is the 15th module of this MOOC. We shall first discuss about the objectives of this unit. The main objective of this unit or module are: the module shall enable all the learners to understand the meaning of demographic transition and its theorization. After going through this module, all the learners will be able to learn about different stages through which a demography passes. Along with this, the learners will also know about the criticisms labeled against the theory, and they will also understand about its relevance in the present world. Dear learners, before going to the discussion on what is demographic transition and how it is theorized, let us first revise the term demography. We have learned in the first module of this MOOC that the word demography comes from two Greek words, demos and graphy, where demos means the people and graphy means the study or writing about or recording something. According to the Oxford Dictionary, demography means the study of human population in terms of size, density, location, race, age, occupation, and other statistics. It is also the description of the vital statistics or objective and quantifiable characteristics of an audience or population. So, dear learners, let us now understand the term demographic transition. In simple words, demographic transition implies a change in the size of population resulting from the change in birth and death rate. We shall be able to learn this in details when we discuss the theory of demographic transition. So, let us now proceed to our discussion on the demographic transition. The theory of demographic transition throws light on the relationship between birth rate and death rate and their consequent effect on the population growth and society. According to E.G. Dolan, demographic transition refers to a population cycle that begins with a fall in death rate, continues with a phase of rapid population growth, and concludes with a decline in birth rate. Thus, the theory implies a historical shift in demographic composition of a society. The theory has many versions and is also known by other names such as theory of population stages, theory of population cycle, and so on. The theory was first propounded by American demographer Warren Thompson, who lived between 1887 and 1973. This theory was propounded by Mr. Thompson in 1929. In 1944-45, Frank Notenstein developed a more formal theory. Their theory had 3 stages. Later, demographer C.P. Blecker presented a 5 stages theory of demographic transition. Frank Notenstein and Warren Thompson's theory had the first 3 stages, and C.P. Blecker added the next 2 stages. C.P. Blecker based his observations on the study of estimated population of continents like Europe, America, North and Central America, South America, Oceania and Asia between 1800 and 1939. Based on his study, he observed that there are 5 stages of demographic transition through which a country passes. We shall now look at the 5 stages. The 5 stages of demographic transition are the stationary stage, marked by high birth rate as well as high death rate with very slow population growth. The expanding stage, characterized by high birth rate and high but declining death rate with rapid population growth. Third, the late expanding stage with falling birth rate and low death rate and low declining rate of population growth. The 4th stage is known as the low stationary phase with falling birth rate along with equally falling death rate. And the 5th stage is the declining phase with low death rate, low birth rate and an excess of death over birth. We shall now show you a diagram of demographic transition to better understand the theory. This diagram depicts the 5 stages of demographic transition. As you see, there is a part of natural increase, and then there are the 5 stages: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5, through which the demography of a nation passes. We shall now discuss in detail about the 5 stages of demographic transition. First, we'll go through stage 1. C.P. Blecker terms this stage as the high stationary phase, marked by high birth rates and high death rates. This phase mainly depicts the condition of agricultural population living near the subsistence levels as depicted by Malthus in his Malthusian theory. These families mostly live under the shadows of natural metamorphosis, and over these situations they do not have any control. Now, in the first phase of demographic transition, a country is in such a state where the seeds of development have not been sowed in. The country is backward and is characterized by high birth rate as well as high death rate, which results in a low growth rate of population. This stage is one where most of the population resides in villages and take up agriculture as their main occupation. With a handful of small and cottage industries, the tertiary and service sectors are also underdeveloped. During years of good harvest and flourishing livestock, the number of births increases. With low income and widespread poverty, a large family with many children is viewed as a scope for earning for the family. Besides, being illiterate, they hardly know the ways of birth control. Moreover, in these societies, superstitions run high. These various social and economic factors contribute to increase in birth rate. Now, being underdeveloped, the people reside in unhygienic and unhealthy conditions, resulting in widespread diseases and illness. With low income and inability of parents to take care of their children, the young ones mostly remain malnourished. During periods of drought, natural calamity, epidemic disease, which affects both human and livestock, the flooding of a river basin such that wide area is inundated, the number of deaths increases. The governing authority or the government also fails to enlighten people through education and is also not able to provide minimum required medical facilities. Disease struck and being poor, the people die. Blecker observed that this stage continued in Western Europe approximately up to 1840 and in India as well as China till 1900. Now, let us concentrate on stage 2. C.P. Blecker terms this stage as the early expanding phase of the demographic cycle, which is characterized by high rates of high stationary level and by lower, often falling death rates. Ignoring migration, the difference between these two rates is the measure of the natural increase. According to Blecker, growth characteristic of the early expanding phase is a first reaction to Western influences. In this phase, the country has improved agricultural methods. They adopt the use of fertilizers and pesticides. Irrigation facilities develop and flood control measures are initiated. They opt for crop rotation in order to increase the food supply. There are discoveries of mineral and fuel resources. Heavy industries begin to develop. Government tries to establish hygienic facilities and medical services. Roads are built and road transport facilities improve, thus facilitating the movement of food supplies to different areas. In this phase, the economy initiates the process of economic growth. The productivity of agriculture and industrial sector increases. With the development of roads and transportation facilities, mobility of labor increases. The education sector also expands and income of the people also increases. There is availability of food and better access to health and medical facilities. And the death rate falls. Now, with the improvement in standard of living, along with improved food habits of the people, the life expectancy also increases. With economic growth and increasing employment opportunities, there is inclination to increase the birth of children because now the children will be able to add more to the family income. In this stage, the birth rate is almost stagnant. Even if there is economic growth, but the mentality of the people do not change. They are still engulfed in the chains of superstition and religious beliefs. They do not make any effort for adopting birth control measures. As a result of these factors, the birth rate remains in the previous high level because, as already mentioned, there is economic growth and better food and health facilities. But there is decline in death rate. However, there is no change in birth rate because, as already mentioned, the people do not adopt birth control measures. Now, because there is decline in death rate but no change in birth rate, population increases at a rapid rate. And this leads to population explosion. Now let us go to stage 3. Blecker termed the third stage as the late expanding phase. Why? In this stage, both birth rate and death rates are declining and the death rates are consistently lower than birth rates. This yields annual increase in population. Improved healthcare facilities helps in increasing the survival rate. Women learn about the benefits of using contraceptives as they now start to learn that big families are a burden. Blacker, in his paper, observed that 20% of the population of the world passed through this phase during the 1930s. Going to the first stage, Blacker termed the fourth stage as low stationary phase. Blacker observed that this fourth phase of low stationary of demographic cycle is marked by low natality and mortality, leading to total population stability. In this stage, death rates are lower primarily because of lower disease rates on one hand and higher production of food on the other. During this phase, women begin to become financially independent and there is access to contraceptives, and their horizon of knowledge regarding the benefits of a small family expands. Besides, when they themselves learn about their health benefits of giving birth to 1 or 2 children at the max, their health improves. Improvement in health of women not only contribute to her knowledge and her benefit. If a woman is healthy in a family, that equally contributes to the health of the family, because they can now devote more time to taking care of themselves and their family. Besides, in this stage of the perception of people changes. They discard old beliefs, begin to become self-centered. It is in this stage that people come out of joint families and begin to prefer nuclear families. Now the last stage, stage 4. Dear learners, the fifth stage of demographic transition was termed by C.P. Blacker as the declining phase. He termed this stage as the declining phase because in this stage, countries are marked by an actual excess of death over births, and unless compensated by immigration, many European countries are now encountering this crisis where they have mortality greater than natality, and that's why many European countries are now inviting foreign nationals to work for them and to study there. Again, in this stage, there is the problem of sub-replacement fertility. According to the United Nations Population Division, sub-replacement fertility is defined as any rate below approximately 2.1 children born per woman of childbearing age. This rate may however be as high as 3.4 in some developing countries because of higher mortality rate. This stage further witnesses population aging contributing to declining fertility rate. Dear learners, we hope that you have understood the main propositions of the theory of demographic transition. Let us now try to understand the criticisms of this theory, because this theory is also not free of criticisms. Several studies have tried to establish empirical explanation of the theory, and many such studies and critics points out to a few limitations of this theory. Let us discuss them one by one. First, criticism leveled is about the sequence of stages which are not uniform according to critics. Now, empirical studies point out to the non-uniformity of the sequences of the stages of demographic transition. To point out a few, some parts of Eastern and Southern Europe and in also Spain, the trend of fertility rates was downwards even when the trend of mortality rate was upswing. However, in the United States of America, the rate of growth of population was higher in the second and third stage of demographic transition compared to other stages. Secondly, the critics pointed out that the declining birth rate is not always initiated in the urban areas. Notenstein asserted that the birth rate initially declined among urban population in European countries. But this assertion by him has not been supported by empirical evidence. In reality, Sweden and France, who predominantly have rural population, saw decline in natality in the same way as countries like Great Britain, which are mostly dominated by urban population. Thirdly, the explanations for the cause of decline in birth rate varies from country to country. Dear learners, it may be pointed out that the theory fails to point out the basic reasons of decline in natality rates in Western countries. Actually, in reality, the causes of decline in birth rate vary from country to country. The analysis further suggests that the rise in the demand for human capital in the process of development was the main trigger for the decline in fertility and the transition to modern growth. Thus, dear learners, we can say that the theory of demographic transition is not a generalization but only an observation, and hence it cannot be termed as a theory. But despite the criticisms, it can be said that this theory of demographic transition is equally applicable to both developed and developing countries of the world. Even if the world progressed, however, even today there are some countries in the African continent which are still in the first phase of demographic transition, and some other developing countries of the world which are in the second or third phase. To be precise, we can say that India has ventured into the third stage, where the mortality rate is falling at a higher rate due to better healthcare facilities as well as awareness of the people. However, in India, the decline in birth rate is very slow, and as a consequence, the country is experiencing a huge population explosion. Dear learners, we have now come to the end of today's discussion. We have learned about the theory of demographic transition, which discusses the different stages of transition of human population. Though there are limitations to this theory, which we have discussed in this video, yet this theory cannot be totally discarded. This is because this theory has provided pathways for further research in population and also paved ways for establishing and understanding the theories of demography. Further, this theory can also be said to be an improvement of the Malthusian theory of population because it do not lay emphasis only on the issue of food supply as done by Malthus. Rather, this theory of demographic transition does bring out various factors which do contribute to the composition of population structure of a country. I hope you have understood what has been discussed in this video. We shall be discussing another theory, that is optimum theory of population, in the next module. Hope to see you in the next video. Have a great day. Thank you.